Patrick, I do apologize. I will get that off the screen, but that is more publicity for you. So let's get straight into it. I do apologize about that. The technical grief that we sometimes have when all we have is no staff, but it's our own. And I'm bringing you straight on. Patrick Wood, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you, sir?
I'm just doing great. Thank you. Good to be with you.
Pat, I want to talk about this. This is your new book that you have wonderfully written with Courtenay Turner, and also, and I will put it in the link, which is you've just done a fantastic roundtable with our dear friend John Haller and three other friends and associates of yours. And as you are aware, I've just spent a week in Israel with dear John, so which was an amazing time. It was lovely to meet him in person. So Pat, that round table you did a few days ago, which I thought was utterly astounding, hence why I reached out to you. Why have you written this book, sir? I think is the opening gambit. What are your concerns?
Well, this book, this may be the last book that I ever write. Right. I'm not sure. Right. When I say final, this is the final betrayal, in my opinion. I might have another book, call it Mop Up or something. I don't know. But at this point, this concept of the final betrayal is what's happened in the United States, especially. The world will be affected as well, but in the United States at this point, we're laboring under an oppression that we've never seen in our life. And when you consider the political realm, it's always the case where politicians open their mouth, they say things that they don't mean, and then they break the promises after they get elected. This has been my history for all these years, going back to the 70s. Yeah, okay, fine. Politicians lie. They all do it, right? At this point, we're not dealing with broken promises. We're dealing with outright deception, false deception. We're dealing with a betrayal that we've never seen before in our history, I don't think. And it's based on technocracy in particular. And before the election on just a year ago, a little bit over a year, on November 2nd, 2024, nobody had a clue what was going to happen when Trump came in to office. Not a clue. The expectations were to secure the border. That was one thing. That's happened actually, but we didn't bargain for a police force to be launched, a federal police force being launched all over the country with ICE. That's immigration control. And this is just getting really crazy at this point. Yeah, they're getting rid of some illegals, but Americans are getting harassed all over the place as well. It has signs of Gestapo at this point. But nevertheless, the betrayal really centered on this business of the dark enlightenment. Nobody had a clue what that was before the election. They were expecting Trump to make America great again, to make America healthy again. That was another thing. They expected a walk back of federal encroachment, if you will, on rights all over the place. That was a big thing with me for sure. But then what we got was this betrayal, where this new philosophy, when all the tech bros rolled into Washington, D.C., all of a sudden we get this other worldly philosophy coming in called the Dark Enlightenment. And what they have done at this point, and it's revealed now, we know exactly what it is, and this is why the book. They said that we need to have a monarch in America, just like the UK, a king, if you will. We got rid of that, I think, 200 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah, they say we have to have a monarch. Then they said, well, we have to run our country like a startup corporation. So we're going to have a CEO come in and run the country just like a startup, taking autocratic control of basically everything, like a dictator, and running everything from the top down, and just basically appointing technocrats to run everything. Forget the political system. They think that the political system is just broken beyond repair, and this is crazy stuff. This is not American at all. This concept of overthrowing democracy, the constitutional republic, installing a monarch, subverting the political system that we have with the Congress and Senate and the House, et cetera. Nobody bargained for this. Nobody bargained for this. We saw the very first volley, if you will, when these technocrats came to Washington and embedded themselves in all the agencies in the country, using through the auspices of DOGE, DOGE, that's the Department of Government Efficiency, supposedly run by Elon Musk. It wasn't, as it turns out. He had nothing to do with it officially. But nevertheless, his people and the cohorts of Peter Thiel as well were inserted into the government to spring all the government data on citizens to the cloud. In other words, they broke down all the silos that had been intentionally created over the years. Those silos all of a sudden were exposed to the cloud. Now they turn the whole thing over to Palantir to manage the whole enchilada. So nobody expected that either. And the list goes on. It just, at this point, 12 months on, almost 12 months on since the inauguration, our country is being flip-flopped into another type of a political system, economic system, social system, you name it. Every leg of our stool had been remodeled, if you will.
Pat, I remember our conversations before the presidential election, because I came on with your friend and colleague, Mr. France, I think, in Ohio, and there's a show that you and he were doing at that time, and I came on. So listening to this, and of course listening to the incredible roundtables that you're doing, Pat, when did you, sorry, I know who I'm talking to, which is the authority on technocracy and Technocracy News, and having, you've written the books in the past with AC Sutton, Trilaterals over Washington. Pat, when did this dawn on you? When did this hit you that once Trump was brought in, when did all the dollar signs start really being in there loud and clear to you, sir?
Number one, I wrote about this in my first book on technocracy.
Yep.
That was this one, Technocracy Rising.
Yep.
And the subtitle was the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation. I posited in this book, this basically gave an overview of what technocracy is all about. And I said The technocrats are the type of people who keep a checklist on their progress. And when that checklist is finished or completed, they'll call game over. And I wrote this almost 11 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understood even at that point, there's going to be a time in the near future where these technocrats are going to get all the cards on the table, and when they figure out they have the trump card, if you will, no pun intended. That's a term from bridge, but
Yeah.
When they have the card that will turn the trick for them, they'll call game over, and this is exactly where we are right now. They've surfaced en masse to take over the government of the United States, and not just the government. It's basically this is the destruction of government, not necessarily taking over for their political purposes. They want to destroy the government of the United States altogether, and they're neutering it right now and setting it up for ultimate destruction, I do believe. However, when COVID came along, I said very pointedly at the very start, like in February, March of 2020, I said, this is a technocratic coup taking place. When I saw all of the university professors, the people doing the studies, statistical studies on global warming and stuff like that for the United Nations, when I saw that crowd roll over onto COVID to make the same predictions using COVID not instead of global warming, I knew that was a tell to me. This was a coup d'etat of technocracy. That was volley number one. Now we have the second shoe to drop with the takeover of the government altogether by technocrats. These are the arch technocrats of the world, the billionaire technocrats of the world, people like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, etc. These people have so much money that you can't believe how much it's an incredible amount of money. So they're not happy with the money that they have at this point. They want to basically take over the world. So when I saw, even back before the election, when Trump was gaining steam, especially when you see the tech bros attaching themselves to Trump, they all came over from the left side to attach themselves. Elon Musk, not Peter Thiel, he was already there in the first Trump administration, but Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos. I mean, they all came over. Oh, Trump's going to be our savior now. Well, indeed, he has been, and all of a sudden, they've just. Trump didn't cave to these people, by the way. They didn't exert pressure on him, like black bail or whatever, to get him to do what they wanted. He was complicit from the beginning, in my opinion. It couldn't be any other way at this point. So maybe Trump has another agenda on top of the technocratic agenda. I don't know, but at this point, he's been completely complicit with the technocratic takeover of Washington, D.C. Let me just back up. I'm going to rewind to 1976 when I started this whole thing with Anthony Sutton. When Jimmy Carter came into office, he was a member of the Trilateral Commission. So was the vice president at that point, Walter Mondale. And of course, the commission has always been, it was established in 1973. Those 3 years then for them to get ramped up to take over the Carter administration. At the time, by the time the Carter administration was formed, the entire cabinet except for one person, were all members of the Trilateral Commission. It was a clean sweep. It was incredible. And, this is what alarmed us back in that day. What on earth where'd these people come from? Well, they weren't interested in the political system of the United States. They really weren't. They said that openly, even themselves. We're not interested in politics. Well, they weren't. They were interested in reforming the economic system of the world. That's why they said that they were going to create a new international economic order, NIEO. This was all over the literature. However, they didn't really declare that openly when they took over the Carter administration. Okay, after the Carter administration, then came Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush was his vice president, by the way, who was a member of the Trilateral Commission as well.
Yeah.
However, the trilateral, all of the trilaterals at that point, they went underground or underwater, if you will, like a nuclear submarine. They're still there, but they went underground. And you see their effects over the years. For instance, H.W. became president, then Bill Clinton and Al Gore came in. They were both members of the Trilateral Commission. They had a bunch of trilaterals in their the cabinet or surrounding them. Then came George W., and he had Dick Cheney on his vice president. Yeah. He was a member, right? So all I have to say that basically they were operating underground for all these years. Okay, it's important to me to see just how visible all of a sudden they've become with the technocratic takeover of Washington, D.C. They're swarming all over. Then they're not hiding it at all. They were hiding it during the Carter administration, or excuse me, the Biden administration and Obama's administration as well. But at this point, they've taken all the coverings off, and they're announcing, here we are, we're taking over now. We're going to reform your economic system into the new international economic system. So get used to it, basically. And they're not pulling any bones about it at all at this point.
When you mentioned Dick Cheney, because Dick Cheney died of just over a week ago, didn't he? So in the last 2 weeks, he has died. And do you let me see if I've got this right? I think either he was at the Council of Foreign Relations or the Brookings Institute. And do you remember when he made a comment about, I'm representing Wyoming, but basically the people in Wyoming don't know what I get up to when I'm here, and speaking in regard to attending the Council of Foreign Relations. Well, I'll try and find that clip as well, Pat, because at this point, when people turn around and go, no, you're making this up, we're not. And that is so. When you talk about Trump, this is really interesting. When you say that he has to be complicit in this, sorry, asking the stupid question. Why do you think that? Why do you think he's complicit in this?
It has to be because everything he's done so far has been for the benefit of the technocracy. Yeah. Everything from the get-go. Now, there's been a couple of bones he threw to the American people, admittedly. The border being closed is one of them. But other than that, he's let them have free reign, and all of the executive orders that he executed when he first got in office, they were the big ceremony on every one, and his signature appears on it. He was smiling, and he said, "Oh, I'm doing this, blah blah blah," and you can't fake that. You just can't fake that. Nobody had a gun to his head for sure. And there's probably other aspects that we'll talk about in a minute that have to do with the Mideast.
Yes.
And how chummy he's become with the Mideast at this point. This is very disturbing, very disturbing.
I agree. And also, I tie that in with when you've talked about, the formation of the Trilateral Commission in 1973. Let's just remind ourselves who else was a member of the Trilateral Commission on this side of the pond from 2017 to 2022, which is the present Prime Minister of the UK. If people don't believe me, go and look up the website and check it out, because we are being run by a total and utter technocrat. As it's a family show, I'll just end it like that. There are a lot of other things I could add to that. But yeah. Pat, right, taking that, the formation in 73, what you've just said, I think, is also profound in regard to the Middle East, because look at then the overthrow of the Shah in 1979, which I've also understood had the trilaterals all over it. Even if the Shah goes to America, has treatment for cancer, and various other things that are going on, then Khomeini is then flown from Paris over there. We've got the red-green axis, the Marxists getting together with the Islamists. That seems fairly up to date with what's going on at the present time. Pat, what are your thoughts?
Yes, indeed. But there's an overarching agenda,
right,
with the Islamic world, who some people will remember all of the technical conferences that have been held in like Dubai and Riyadh and the Qatar, and the Islamic world has staked their flag in this business called fintech, financial technologies, that has to do with blockchain, things like blockchain, digital ID, etc. They want to be the leader of the world on fintech technologies. Why would they want that? Well, it just so happens that their economic system in the Mideast is all asset-based, not debt-based like we are in the West. An asset-based system is complementary to financial technologies, for instance, tokenization of assets to be traded freely in the market. There's no debt associated with it. The Sharia law forbids usury.
Yes.
So they've already staked their claim, if you will, in financial technologies. In America, we're erecting a system, a privatized system right now. That's what one thing that Trump did on day one. He put the Federal Reserve on the sidelines, said, you can't do this anymore. We're going to do it ourselves. People like David Sachs, his AI czar and crypto czar, and people like Howard Lutnick and our Secretary of the Treasury, Bessent, they set about to create a new privatized system of payments as well as tokenization of assets. This system that they're creating in America, it just happens to be totally compatible with Sharia law and Sharia finance in the Middle East. This is very disturbing to me, because what it portends is that we're going to be flipped out of being a debt-based economy into an asset-based economy, where the debt will be retired somehow. They're going to blow the whole system up, maybe just get rid of it altogether. But a year from now, the odds are, maybe a little bit longer, the odds are America will be experiencing a new type of financial system based on asset tokenization, not debt-based issuance of money and currency. Does that make sense?
Yes. And my question is, Pat, are people listening to your warning? Are you making yourself rather popular at the moment or not?
That depends on your view. I'm sure I'm making a lot of people sweat. I'm sure. I honestly, somebody has to have this idea that if I can think of it, somebody else could as well. But it's so obvious to me that this is where it's headed. And the implications are so huge for everybody in America. You remember when Klaus Schwab came up with the slogan, by 2030, you'll own nothing. This will be a fulfillment of that. Because when debt goes away, that means all of the assets in the world, or at least in our country, that are based on issuance of debt in the first place, that's going to be the equity might survive, but the debt part will not survive. And what it will mean is the effective removal of private property rights from Americans. Where there's no private property, there's nothing but technocracy. That was specified in their documents from the get-go in 1932. There was no such thing as private property to them. They wanted to control everything. This is exactly where we're headed. And so, you can see people giving up their houses, for instance, that maybe have a mortgage, and for whatever reason, they can't get out of their house, and they'd like to, maybe for a job or somewhere else. Somebody's going to offer them, like, say, some token assets from some other source, and will give you equity, like, say, 150% of your equity in these other tokens. You give us a mortgage and you turn over your title to us. We'll let you rent back from us then at that point, continue your rent payments. You'll probably get raised quickly after that, but nevertheless. And so the financial oligarchs at this point have figured out they can make more money renting to you than they can lending money to you. This is demonstrated by actions and by mathematics. They can actually make more money renting to everybody rather than letting them buy stuff on their own nickel.
In my opinion, that is what is going on within the UK. I just feel when we look at companies like BlackRock, we look at people like Fink, there they are having meetings with 10 Downing Street, with the Prime Minister, with Rachel Reeves, Chancellor, with the Cabinet. And as far as I'm concerned, till this day, when someone has done an amazing FOI on that meeting and others, that information is still not coming out. And when we talk about BlackRock, we talk about other asset management banks in that line. People still don't believe us. And I come back to this phrase, Pat. How do we wake people up on this? And also, we also know, as Bible believing Christians, we know how the book ends, right? We are grateful for our faith in Christ, because we're not going to get through any of this unless we do, right?
Exactly.
And I just want to publicly say that. But Pat, how do we wake people up? Do you think, referencing America, do you think the American people are ready to hear this, or is there just a complete denial? And I don't mean that rudely.
Yeah, I think more people today than ever before are starting to get the picture. Our book sales have been very brisk since I released this book 2 weeks ago.
Good.
And that's a good sign. It may not continue, but at this point, it's a good sign. We're not selling thousands of books, don't get me wrong, but nevertheless, based on my previous books, the release of them, the sales are doing very, very well. We're having 5-star reviews on Amazon at this point.
Good.
Across the board. That's a good thing as well. several pastors and people in prophetic ministries in our country contacting me, and I'll be on the air with them soon. So there's a growing awareness of what's going on. Is it enough to make a difference? I don't know at this point. I never predicted that what would ever happen. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be up to the American people for sure. There's a spiritual component, I'm sure of it, but the church hasn't really. If you look back at the church activity for the last 50 years plus, the church really hasn't been substantive in the direction of our country. In fact, they kind of failed to hold up their bargain, like taking prayer out of schools and that sort of stuff.
And COVID recently as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, to hope that the church is going to do anything to fix this, or the Christian body at large, that's not going to happen. It's never happened yet. And basically, we see at this point a mass defection of the evangelical church. Unfortunately, that's one of the aspects of the Final Betrayal, when Charlie Kirk was killed in a timely manner, I guess, for somebody. The church, the evangelical church, has taken a swan dive into dominionism, Reconstructionism, Neo-Calvinism, and every other cockeyed theology you can imagine, other than biblical Christianity. And the whole movement now, when I say whole, I cited in the book that the people that believed in the so-called seven mountain mandate that's specified by the NAR movement, 45%. Well, first it went from 30% like 2 or 3 years ago. Last year, 2024, it was up to 45%, I think. Now, we don't have the statistic, but I can guarantee you at this point, it's probably over 60%, 65%, maybe even 70% of the evangelical church believes in the seven mountain mandate. That's basically saying we have to reclaim the world for Christ so he can come back again. In other words, we're going to take over these areas of society, and there's going to be a great revival, they say, and we're going to have a big reunion when Christ comes back. We'll have everything tidied up for him. That's wishful thinking. That's not biblical at all. Yet the devil has set a trap, a multi-generational trap, to get the church careening into this heresy. And their eschatology is changing at the same time. This is what they don't realize. Now they don't believe in the rapture at all. If there is going to be a rapture, it's going to be at the end of the millennial reign of Christ. That's what we say. We say is the reign of Christ for 1,000 years. But whatever they push it off. Well, there you go. There's no sense of imminence that Christ will return at any time.
Yeah.
And beyond that, they all as a group have transitioned into replacement theology, which is horribly anti-Semitic by its nature. So what's happened now? We see the effect of this is very clearly seen in my mind. Anybody will see that the anti-Semitism is off the charts all over the world, but in America especially. All these supposedly evangelical Christians who were professing the reign of Christ and the soon rapture of Christ, they've all defected at this. pastors are just leading their flocks in the other direction at this point. This is very disturbing as well.
And especially as I've just come back from Israel on the Christian Media Summit there with John Haller, and there was plenty of discussions from the front and within the people attending. We're looking at people like Candace Owen, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and I think you raise a very interesting point. I mean, it's very sad because of the execution, literally, of Charlie Kirk, and then what has unfolded from that, in regard to people that they thought they were loyal, they thought they were well balanced on a number of things, and people have found out the hard way that they are certainly not. And I hear you loudly, Pat, because this was all part of that discussion. The other thing that I thought was very, very interesting from your recent roundtable, other than what you've said in regard to the tech pros, but what is the American economy actually like at this present time? What are your views on that? Is it doing fantastically, or is it not, or is this all smoke and mirrors?
We're in a horrible position right now, I believe. I haven't, I gave up my forecasting, markets and financial forecasting business years ago when I started studying technocracy. However, we're in bad shape right now for a number of reasons, and I can't give you specifics. Well, maybe a couple, but the housing market right now is just going in the trash can. That's usually the first sign of serious trouble. Bankruptcies are up all over the country. We see banks defaulting, small banks at this point, defaulting on issues, to say. Companies are defaulting on bonds and debt. The economic, where the structure of the stock market right now, if you take away all of the big seven tech companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, et cetera, if you take that out of the S&P 500, they're hugely important to that index. But if you take those stocks out, we've already been approaching a bear market, even as I speak. And people are talking about that AI itself is probably a huge bubble, and it has a potential, since all this money has been invested, trillions of dollars have been invested in this segment. If that wealth starts to evaporate, it's going to be a huge, huge blow for not just our economy, but the economy of the world. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is to play out. But there's trouble in River City, as they say. When it will break, I don't know. I would have thought it would have broken in like 2010, but they've been able to kick the can down the road. But there will be a time soon, I think, where especially debt is going to be over at that point. Let me explain why. When a company goes bankrupt, the first thing that gets released is the debt. That's why you go bankrupt, is to dissipate the debt. The assets are still there, but the debt is the thing that gets forgiven by the court. And so that debt all of a sudden just goes poof, and it's deflationary at that point, because if enough people do it, debt becomes it starts to collapse in on itself, and it spirals at some point into a full-blown depression. That's what happened in the Great Depression of 1929. It was totally deflationary. If this deflationary cycle or the spin gets or the whirlpool, if you will, gets strong enough, it'll collapse the whole system. That unfortunately will play into the hands of technocracy because that's what they're banking on at this point, is the whole thing is going to collapse and they'll get all the assets under their control and take all the assets away from the people of the world.
So Peter Thiel, once he stopped his lectures on the Antichrist and who is the Antichrist, which may be a bit of a diversion for many while he's waiting for this complete collapse to happen.
Yes.
And in a recent interview, wasn't he? I'm just trying to remember the words where he was asked about if there was a future for humanity or humanity's contribution to the future. And he seemed to delay his answer for quite a few seconds that would mean that we're going, well, hold on, Peter Thiel, aren't you supposed to say there is a future for humanity? But he seemed to was a little bit late with that reply.
Yes.
Pat, wow. So how come then President Trump says, oh, the economy is doing so well, the stock market is through the roof? So I think this was explained by one of your friends, colleagues on your recent round table. Is it true? How is this growth created? Is it about companies buying each other's shares and passing that between the two?
That's certainly a tactic that they've been using in these big tech companies. Is it enough to keep the whole thing moving forward? I doubt it, but nevertheless, that's an observable fact. How they one way that they can manipulate their earnings. But that's an old tactic. We see a lot of it more now, but nevertheless, now at this point, one other thing I want to get on this with our discussion, just related. When we talk about the labor market, because labor and the economy go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
If deflation kicks in, we're going to have a deflationary collapse, and that means there'd be a lot of people out of work. Well, we know now that AI, these leaders of AI are saying, well, AI is going to crush the job market all by itself. We're going to be laying off millions and millions of people eventually, and AI is going to take over the jobs of people, and robots are going to take other jobs away, and there's going to be a huge collapse of employment around the world, at least in our country, and this is spreading to the whole world at this point. We'll talk about America now. One of the criticisms that was levied a bit against technocracy came from an unlikely source. The Marxist Party in 1944 leveled a criticism against technocracy. They didn't like technocracy at all. In fact, they hated them. The technocrats didn't like them either. But the Marxists of that day, they got an idea that there's something really screwy going on here with technocracy. So they wrote at least two major papers that appeared in, see what was it? I'm going to give you the exact publication here. The articles appeared in the New International. That was the organ, or the whatever, the Marxist official Marxist publication, put it that way. And they wrote this in they wrote this in 1944. Wow. It is very succinct. I'm going to read it to you. This is what they wrote. where the economic analyst notes the development of this type of chronic unemployment, they had an issue for sure. Howard Scott records nothing less than, quote, the abolition of human labor. One of the fundamental tenets of technocracy is that labor has become non-essential to society. Technocrats have never changed their view. This is me talking now. They've never changed their view in almost 100 years. The same stuff. They go on, they say, this is a quote again, this is a faithful rendering of Scott's views. Technological improvement will itself bring about the automatic collapse of the present system, which will fall of its own weight. Technocrats conceive their job to be merely to sit back and wait for this to happen.
Wow.
Do you get the idea? This could have been written yesterday.
Yep. And also, Pat, we're looking at places like Amazon where they're replacing people on the package line with robotics to do menial jobs. There's other companies that be doing the same. And all these big data centers that they're building, like for argument's sake, in Ohio and elsewhere.
Yes. Well, in any case, in the back of their mind, the economy is going to be radically changed soon by the collapse of labor. That means there'll be basically the removal of private property altogether. Who will have any money to have private property? There'll be no ability to save money, for sure. You'll be living on universal basic income, perhaps, if they can get that somehow through the mill. I don't think they will, but they say they're going to do it. So maybe you'll be subsistence level living, but you'll never be able to pass anything to your children. You'll never be able to save money. Basically, you'll own nothing and be happy. Oh, forget the happy. But
Pat, I'm because I know you've got in the last sort of few minutes, because I know you've got to go shortly, but your observations, any observations of what you're seeing happening in the UK in regard to, digital passports and all this other nonsense they're trying to push through. I just wonder if you've got any observations in what's going on over here and in Europe.
I certainly do. Palantir just had a huge contract that it sucked out of your HHS system. Basically, to take over.
Do you mean the NHS system?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, don't worry. The National Health Service. Yep.
Their presence there is going to be to take over the whole system for health management in the UK. This is incredible. I don't think it's going to end well for them.
No. When they're taking it over, right? So what does that actually mean? It mean what in regard to the data collection, in regard to the records that they've got of patients? That's what you mean?
Yes, but you remember the object of data, the collection of data, is not just for the sake of collecting data. Some people collect things because they have no other reason but just to accumulate stuff. They're hoarders. But data has a quality about it. The only reason it has value is that it can be used when analyzed in bulk, especially. It can be used, turned around, and used against the objects from which it was collected in the first place. That's the object of data. All of your data now is going to be processed by AI and at the hands of Palantir. Remember, we just talked about Peter Thiel. This is a guy so confused about the Antichrist, and he says, you know what? if you get your hands off of AI, the world will be a wonderful, wonderful place to be. You'll see abundance going to come, and everything's going to be peachy. But he says, out of the other side of the mouth, but if you clamp down regulations on AI, you're creating the Antichrist.
Wow. I think the other thing is Palantir have also got military contracts, I think,
Yes.
over here as well.
Yes, absolutely. And combined together, all that data is going to be one big happy lump of data at that point.
Yeah.
And that Palantir through the UK probably going to spread their technology, military technology, to all of NATO at that point for targeting purposes.
Yeah.
And this whole thing just stinks to high heaven. Yeah. And Europe and the UK are at this point far ahead of us in implementing technocracy, unfortunately. But it's coming to us. We're the last man standing, if you will, as a people. But now they have this full court press on us with all these arch technocrats milling around Washington, D.C., doing things that are nothing short than the great betrayal of the American people.
I hear you. And Rupert Darwell, who wrote the book Green Tyranny, and the forward of his book, it was a brilliant book, great man, who turns around and says that the piece of paper that stands before world tyranny, globalization, is the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
I just want to thank you so much for joining me. And people can find your book on your website, can find it on Amazon, any other place that you would.
Yes, we have a relationship with Books By, that's books.by, and they have international shipping, so people can order it overseas, anywhere in the world, Australia, even Asia, as I understand. They'll deliver the book to you for like $5. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
So if you're international, for sure, go to books.by. You can get it from Amazon. All the Amazons around the world are carrying the book as well.
Brilliant. What I'd love to do is to get your other co-writer, Courtenay Turner, on the show as well. I'd love to interview her as well. Pat, that'd be great. Pat, it's been an utter delight to talk to you. Thank you so much. Please, I will put where people can get the book, put the link to Technocracy News. And Pat, can we continue to have this conversation?
Please do. We have to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
We have to do it. And I'll just say to everyone, please go to Technocracy News. Start learning about the Trilateral Commission, especially if you're in the UK, because I will say this, no one publicly talks about it except I do, and one other dear journalist who wrote for a Labour Party magazine called Labour Heartland. I think his name is Paul Naggs, and I would like to, we may be on the politically at different ends of the spectrum, but on that, it'd be an interesting discussion to have with Paul. Pat, I'm going to play us out. I know you've got to go. All the best with your next interview, and I will speak to you soon, my friend. Take care.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.